In the heart of Nevada County, there's a place where hope has a second chance. Meet Sammie's Friends, a nonprofit organization dedicated to rescuing, rehabilitating, and rehoming animals in need. Since 2004, Sammie's Friends has been a lifeline, providing medical care, love, and forever homes. Every animal deserves a second chance. That's why we do what we do. Thanks to supporters like you, these tails keep wagging. Be a friend, be a hero, be part of Sammie's Friends, because every life matters. Donate today.
Welcome back. I'm Lisa Swarthout, and I'm here at the Bark-A-Thon today, helping raise money for Sammie's Friends. And with me is Fran Cole, the Executive Director for Sammie's Friends, my friend, who we've worked together for quite a while. Thank you for all that you do for all the animals of Nevada County. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on at the shelter right now. I know we have there's a lot of animals there. So what's your take on why we have so many animals in the shelter right now?
Well, there are a number of different factors that all contribute at various times. I believe that one of the largest factors is the high cost of veterinary care, especially spay-neuter. One of the issues that we've always faced at Sammie's, and it's not getting any better, is that anywhere from 75 to 90% of the animals that come into the shelter are not spayed or neutered. And under the law and under our contract with the county, we have to spay and neuter every animal before it's adopted. And people just aren't doing it. And what I see in social media and in talking to people is people are unable to afford the cost. There's a lot of economic uncertainty right now. There are people that are struggling financially to feed themselves. And the high cost of vet care, the economic insecurity, I think those are all the main factors that are contributing towards the overpopulation of animals.
Yeah, it also seems like it's gotten a lot more expensive, especially with the dogs that used to be $200, $300, $400, and now it can be upwards of $1,000 to neuter a larger dog.
Right, a larger dog can be even more than that.
More than that, yeah. So I know we work with a lot of the vets in the community, and also with Animal Save, who has a spay and neuter program. Right. So what's your relationship with some of the other organizations in the community as far as collaboration?
We collaborate almost exclusively on spay neuter for nonprofits with Animal Save. They're really the only one that is capable of the large volume of spay neuter procedures that we need, and also for the community. And they are also the most reasonably priced. We work with all of the vets in the community for spay neuter, but for Animal Save, we find it really the place to go to because of the economics of it.
Yeah, and I think when I met with Caroline a couple months ago, they're upwards of 300 or 400 animals a year that they spay and neuter out of their little mobile, which is amazing considering that they don't have a full-on vet hospital. Right. They have a mobile van that basically that is equipped, and I got a tour of that. So, so how many pets do you have in the shelter right now?
In the shelter right now, I think Emily would know more than I do. It really varies from day to day, but there was one day this year where we were only 100% capacity. And we knew better than to say that out loud that day, because the very next day, animal control came in with a seizure. That's something that is escalating and really causing a lot of problems, because breeders are bringing in full litters of puppies that they are unable to take care of. People that you wouldn't expect to be surrendering their animals can't afford them and are bringing them in. Yeah. And mostly though, right now, because we're so full, we can't take in animals from the community. And I really hope that changes in the future, because if people are faced with feeding their children or feeding their pets, that's a horrible decision to make, but it's a pretty clean one. Yeah. So we're really hoping that different things in the community, spay, neuter, the backyard breeders, they understand how they're contributing to the problem, because we've never really seen, litters or big groups of purebred animals come to the shelter.
Yeah, well, I heard of one a couple of weeks ago from one of our animal control officers where a gentleman passed away, and he was a breeder, and he had 15 Springer Spaniels that came to you, and that's hard. And I'm sure that those dogs are highly adoptable, but you still have to bring them in and spay and neuter, and it's quite expensive to have to take care of them.
And they are highly adoptable, which in a way is part of the problem, because that leaves animals that are less adoptable.
Right.
You know, we had a seizure this last year that animal control brought in. We had 37 huskies.
Yes.
You may remember that.
I do.
And there is a finite capacity in our community for
Right.
adopting huskies. We were able to work with a rescue from Oklahoma that helped us. But a lot of times rescues, you know, become part of the problem.
Right.
You know, they become overwhelmed, just as we all do, with the high pet costs and the lack of adopters that to take animals.
Yeah. I think, you know, one of the things I've seen, I think that social media has really changed how people perceive this, and you see, I mean, I see so much more now, and you're exposed to so much more. If you click on one animal rescue group on Facebook, you get inundated with hundreds of them every week, and they're
Right.
everywhere. And you know, one of the things that it concerns me a little bit, just because I don't know that much about it, but is seeing people in the community now who are doing rescues at their homes. And I'm guessing that at some point those people will get overwhelmed too, because there is such a community need with stray
Right.
pets.
Right.
So how you do get inquiries from people in regards to maybe adopting an animal from one of the private rescue groups out there?
We really don't anymore, because we're the ones that are reaching out to the rescues to try to help us. Because at Sammie's Friends, we have to take in all seizures and strays.
Right.
So the rescues can be selective, and a lot of them will pull animals from other shelters throughout the state, especially shelters that have a very high euthanasia rate.
Right.
So they are saving those animals, but not necessarily, you know, collaborating with us to take the dogs that we have.
Okay.
Some
Yeah.
do. We had a situation recently with a dog that had some behavioral issues,
Right.
and Scooter's pals and Pets in Need stepped up and took that animal. So that is happening. But what is not happening now is in past years, when we had a dog that we couldn't take care of, or we had too many dogs, we would talk with other shelters and say, hey, do you have capacity to take these animals? Right. But now no one has capacity. So once we have an animal, it's our job to find a home for that animal.
Yeah. I can remember a few years ago when we started talking about doing a new shelter and a joint shelter with Grass Valley, Nevada City. We went up to Truckee and visited up there, and they had very few animals up there. They actually had capacity to take more, and I'm sure now they might be at capacity though. And they serve not just Truckee, but the greater Tahoe area.
Right.
But it's much different up there. I said, wow, you don't have very many cats in here. And they said, because we're in the wilderness and stray cats don't usually survive.
In the weather.
Yeah. So it definitely makes a difference. Well, I know I was at one of the dog boarding facilities, and they had these 6 beautiful huskies running in the yard. And I said, wow, who do those dogs belong to? And they said, they belong to you. They belong to the county now, because they were part of that husky rescue. So it's great that there's collaboration. There are so many people in our community who do things with animals, between training, obedience, your dog behaviorist, who's great, who I'm calling next week to help with my dog.
Good. And
then you have an amazing staff too. Not only are they really talented, you have musicians and your staff.
Yes. Multi-talented.
Yeah. Well, and I know a lot of the times when I go to the shelter, I see the same faces out there all the time, which is great. So, well, thank you so much. Great to chat with you, and keep up the good work, and we will be right back.